What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Last week, we discussed the surprise arrest of Macau junket king Alvin Chow. There is increasing evidence to suggest that a crackdown of the Asian gaming capital may be on the cards. Just to remind ourselves, over the weekend before last, powerful Macau casino junket tycoon Alvin Chow was detained by local police. Mainland state media reported that Chow was accused of helping Chinese citizens gamble outside the mainland and facilitating cross-border capital transfers. This week, several casinos have received the message loud and clear and have shut down their VIP gaming rooms. Reports citing anonymous sources say that Wayne Macau Limited and Melco Resorts and Entertainment Limited notified junket operators on Monday that they intend to shut down the rooms from late December. Later in the week, Macau's Gambling Inspection and Coordination Bureau ordered operators to stop offering credit to VIP clients. Analysts have pointed out that providing VIP gamblers with credit is one of the methods that have gotten junkets in trouble, as it can facilitate capital outflow from China. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin Media reports that an industry insider told them that many gambling companies have started shrinking their business, closing VIP rooms and demanding mainland shareholders withdraw their shares. Now, gambling makes up 40% of Macau's GDP, and Goldman Sachs estimates that around 70% of Macau's VIP gambling volume is related to junkets. 1/3 of VIP junket revenue goes through Alvin Chow's Hong Kong-listed Sun City Group. And speaking of that company, on Thursday, trade in shares of Macau's Sun City Group Holdings Limited and its unit Summit Ascent Holdings Limited were suspended, pending a, quote, statement in relation to a possible loan default, end quote. JP Morgan analysts described the arrest as, quote unquote, really bad for the junket industry of Macau, and Goldman Sachs now believes Macau's gambling revenue for VIP persons in 2022 will only recover to 15% of their 2019 levels, down from its previous forecast of 45%. Because of what this arrest means for the junket industry and for the wider economy of Macau. Okay, next up, on Thursday, France's education minister announced that France will not be following the lead of the United States and others in implementing a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. Later that day, French President Macron said he would rather work with the International Olympic Committee than, quote, engage in symbolic boycotts, end quote, expressing, quote, we must not politicize the Olympics, end quote. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying the content, getting some value from the content, don't forget to hit that like button. It's the only way a small channel like this will be seen by more people. Meanwhile, unsurprisingly, state media in the mainland continues to criticize Anglophone nations for their decision to engage in a boycott, a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Olympics in 2022, pushing the narrative that they are but pawns of the US. For example, state-run Global Times yesterday expressed, quote, Canada too is very pathetic, as it has no option but to bow down to US pressure, said Chen, noting that it is very sad that as an independent country, it cannot have its own ideas on foreign policy, but reads the script the US writes for it, end quote. Similar claims were made of the UK and Australia in state-run media over the last couple of days. Now, a warning for some people, the following development contains very heavy subject matter. The unofficial, independent UK-based Uyghur Tribunal, composing lawyers, academics, and business people, concluded this week. The tribunal found, quote, Uyghur people living in Xinjiang province have been subjected to crimes against humanity directed by the Chinese state that amount to an act of genocide, end quote. The tribunal's report says crimes including torture and the systematic suppression of births have occurred, as well as, quote, extreme sexual violence, end quote. The tribunal's chair, Sir Geoffrey Nice, QC, expressed that although some Uyghurs have been killed in detention, there was no evidence of mass killings. The same day, Beijing condemned the tribunal report, with the foreign minister expressing in a statement, quote, "The so-called Uyghur Tribunal hired liars to make false statements and falsify evidence in an attempt to craft a political tool to disrupt Xinjiang and smear China. This so-called tribunal is completely void of any legal basis and has no credibility at all. The so-called final ruling by such a machine churning out lies is nothing but a political farce staged by a handful of contemptible individuals." End quote. This week too, the United States House has passed the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act in a 428-1 vote. The Chinese Foreign Ministry in response expressed, quote, "China urges the United States to get a clear understanding of the situation and immediately stop pushing the relevant bill," end quote. Otherwise, China will be, quote, "compelled to take resolute countermeasures," end quote. The bill now goes before the US Senate, though it could take some time before it is passed there. Okay, now let's move on to something a little bit lighter. We have a lot of new key data for the Chinese economy this week. Data from the central bank shows China increased credit by 2.61 trillion RMB, approximately $409 billion in November, $97 billion more than a year before. This number suggests that by the end of this year, we will likely see China's debt to GDP ratio up by 1 to 2 percentage points over 2020. The state-run Securities Times reports that lending to the quote-unquote real economy dropped year on year. According to data released by the National Bureau of Statistics this week, the Producer Price Index rose 12.9% from a year earlier in November, down from 13.5% growth in October, the fastest increase since 1995. China's Consumer Price Index rose 2.3% from a year ago in November, rising above 2% for the first time in more than a year. The rise in consumer inflation was mainly driven by food prices, especially vegetable prices, which jumped 30.6%. Now, China just concluded its very important economic work conference. As of the recording of this China update, information is still coming out, so we will be doing a deep dive into what was discussed and announced at this event in the next video. So make sure you're subscribed, because this event is critical to understanding what is in store for China's economy next year. And a reminder for those who didn't watch yesterday's episode on Thursday, after 3 days of silence from Evergrande, after failing to make a payment owed by the final deadline, US-based Fitch Ratings declared that Evergrande was in default, placing the debt-ridden Chinese property developer in its quote-unquote restricted default category. This week too, Fitch also placed Kaisa Group, which owes billions of US dollars worth of bond payments, in the restricted default category. The designation means that Evergrande and Kaisa have formally defaulted, but have not yet entered into any kind of bankruptcy filing, liquidation, or other process that would stop its operations. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.